Hi troops, welcome to the latest instalment of the Endless Celts podcast. Now, our regular listeners and viewers will be thinking, wait a minute here, I was expecting a beautiful, caramel sounding, sexy, deep Northern Irish accent. Well, unfortunately, you're stuck with me, William, for this podcast because it's a wee spin off from a wee spin off special from our regular host, Stephen. But he'll be back as usual in the usual podcast. I'm joined tonight by two of our regulars. John, how we doing, John?
I'm not too bad, mate. Looking forward to this.
Me too. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it. And also, we've got Franny with us tonight. How we doing, Franny?
Not bad, Willie. I'm looking forward to your dulcet tones. Let's do this.
Not quite the sexy Northern Irish accent, but we'll have to make do. We'll make do.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned this is a wee spin-off special that we're doing. We're doing some of these specials alongside our normal podcasts. Just a wee bit of fun to bring all the listeners a bit more content, and it's a bit more light-hearted because it's a nice change for all the doom and gloom and all the stuff we've been discussing in this abysmal season we've had so far. We've already had one of these specials on our channel, our YouTube channel, as well as Spotify, etc. It's called 21st Century Celts, in which one of our regular contributors, Tony Anthony, hosted. He had myself and Ross choose our best teams from the last 20 years to go head to head. So that was some great nostalgia, great fun to be involved in. So if you've not listened to it yet, go and give it a listen. It's great fun. Now, we thought we'd have a wee bit of fun tonight as well. So it's kind of similar to that special, but this is our worst Celtic 11, or as we've called it, the Nopes 11. I hate to give props to John for that. that built-in title, because it's brilliant. So before we start, the three of us that are on tonight, we're all young pups. So I spoke to the guys, and we're pretty much mid-90s, 95, 96 onwards. That's where our memories go as far back. So for everybody that's listening or viewing on YouTube or whatever you're doing, we're on all social media outlets as well. Please comment and give us your worst 11 or the worst players you've seen in the Celtic jersey. We love hearing your feedback. We've heard lots of it recently, and it's great. This is why we do it, and it keeps our content going. So please let us know if there's anybody you think we missed out. So, without further ado, we'll jump right in to the goalkeeper situation. I know when I was growing up, the team across the city always had about 3 or 4 cracking keepers, and theirs were just ridiculously bad. So I'll go to John first. Keepers, what we got? What we going for?
So I was going back. I decided to go back to one of Rogers' signings for this in Doris de Vries.
Interesting.
I was trying to think. Headman was another one I was thinking, but I think just the grand scheme of things, I think Doris de Vries was probably the worst keeper I've seen. No, that he came to Celtic with a decent record. That he was, Rogers obviously thought very highly of him, but he done nothing at Celtic. A handful of games, and I can't remember what game it was, but he got hooked, and then he practically never stepped foot in the park again. And it was really forgettable signing for me.
Was it him that was in goal a few seasons ago when the boy for Kilmarnock scored for about 60 yards?
I think so, mate.
Was it?
It might have been, aye. And
I think it was one of Rogers' first signings.
Aye, it was. And I think he was also in goal when we got absolutely destroyed 7-0, I think, at Barcelona.
Oh, was he?
If memory serves. But
he actually played in the 5-1 game where Dembele scored the hat-trick. He's a goalkeeper that day. But I kind of agree with you a wee bit there, Willie. I actually forgot about him.
Aye.
So that just it came down to him and Headman for me, but I think I just gave it De Vries as pipped it for me.
Aye. Right, Franny, what you got?
Well, I'm just a wee disclaimer first. I've obviously picked players that I remembered and stuff. Then I went onto Wikipedia for some stats on them. So if any of the stats are wrong, blame Wikipedia. But I went a wee bit further back with my goalkeeper. Stuart Kerr initially jumped out and Mark Brown, but I had to go with Gordon Marshall. With Gordon Marshall for me, it was some of my earliest memories of Celtic were Gordon Marshall being a goalkeeper, and he's maybe just a victim of the fact that we weren't really winning things. And I just remember, like you say, he had Andy Gorham and guys like that. across the road, and it was just for me it was Gordon Marshall. A wee bit unfortunate because he was part of the side that stopped the 10 and stuff and that, but Gordon Marshall, I just never ever rated him, but I think he was a victim of Rangers' success for me in my eyes in that one.
This is one of the guys I'm talking about. When we were younger, the Rangers side had mega keepers, World Cup winners and the rest of it, and we had utter nonsense. Marshall was one. I tell you what, guys, I've not actually picked a team, but I've wrote down a few names for each position, and you've only mentioned one of them. Stuart Kerr was one that I always remember. I think he had a massive blunder against Rangers in an Old Firm game back in the day. That always stuck out in my mind. And I knew Franny wouldn't mention this guy, but I thought John would have mentioned Barkas this year. Jesus Christ.
Oh, come on.
So this is going to be a tough one for us to vote on. We might have to come back to this. So so you're going Marshall?
Aye, Gordon Marshall.
And John, yours was De Vries?
Aye.
Well, out of the two boys, I think I'm going to have to go Gordon Marshall.
Sweet.
Because I don't really remember De Vries being horrendous. I mind him being bad, but I don't ever remember him being horrendous. So we'll go for Marshall and goals. Although I think that's maybe a bit harsh.
I do agree with Franny though. I think like it was unfortunate that Marshall happened to be a keeper during an era where Rangers were dominant and we weren't really winning anything. I personally, I don't really remember too much Marshall, but nothing stands out as bad or negative for me. But I mean, that's fair. That's a fair assessment.
Still can't believe Barkas hasn't been talked about.
I think Barkas' defence.
That's in a couple of years again.
It's maybe too early to sort of say. And when you look back at other keepers we've had, I think it'd be unfair to skip over the likes. And Stuart Kerr was a shout as well. To skip over some of the other boys in favour of Barkas, because Barkas hasn't really had a chance. Granted, the chances he's had. He's been saved.
The problem is, I think Gordon Marshall's made more saves in one game than Barkas has his whole Celtic career. So
probably,
you know. Right. We went well. By the way, I forgot to mention at the start, we've actually went with an old school 4-4-2 formation. So
thank God, because that's what I went with.
So right back, Franny, I'm going to throw this one to you first. What are we thinking for right back? Let me know your pick, but also maybe some other guys that were maybe in your mind.
Well, my pick was Jeremy Toljan. I just thought when he Christmas he came in, or the New Year he came in, we were screaming for a right back, and then Rodgers at the helm. Thought, he's brilliant. You can always trust a Rodgers signing, but this guy just did not look like he wanted to be there. He was stinking. I feel like he was rotten, absolutely rotten. I can't get any good game he had. I'm not saying he had tons of mistakes, but out of 10 games I think he played, I can't remember him doing anything in note. Like I had a couple of other guys like Paul Telfer. I just thought he was a kind of boring player, but it was part of a Martin O'Neill's successful team, so it was kind of hard to pick him. And I had Chaddery as well, but how could you put Chaddery in me? I had that song and that smile, man. I had to stick with Toljan.
Toljan, interesting. Right, John, what are we going for?
I told you as a shout, and that's one I've completely forgot about. I went for Chaddery. Granted, I heard the song. He was always smiling, and I've heard reports from folk that have spoken to the guy. Apparently, he was like really down to earth. He was quite sound to talk to and that. But I can't forget that own goal. I'll never forget that own goal, and that just sticks out for me. And it was just, I don't know what was going through his head at that point. Him and Foster. I don't know. But
was that against I felt like it was against a French team or something. It was about 40 yards.
Rennes. Aye, it was Rennes. We were playing. And I'll never forget it. It was just absolutely it was
madness.
Aye, so I went for Cha. That was my choice.
Was there? By the way, guys, was this difficult for you to pick these teams?
Well, some positions were definitely.
Some positions were difficult, but I kind of just initially went with names that came off my head. Then I didn't go searching for other names. Like 2 or 3 came off my head, and that was me. I stuck with him.
I found it when we were doing the previous one, and it was about the best players that have been that have played for the club. It was difficult to try and shoehorn a team together, but I was like a bit flabbergasted by the amount of talent we've had at the club and how lucky we've been. And then when I was doing this, I thought this is going to be easy. We've had some absolute stinkers through the seasons, but it was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be.
Aye.
So we are actually very fortunate. We're very fortunate. So anyway, right back. So we went Chaduri and Jeremy Toljan.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I've wrote a few names down here. Maybe Sway. We've got a cult hero in Anoni. You've got to mention him.
I know.
I like Dononi, man.
I know.
Oh no, I know he's on and on now. You can't no mention him, but he can't go in. He's an absolute cult hero, isn't he?
Correct.
Here's one. I'm going to fling at you. Although he played pretty much every position in the park, so I don't know if you can hear him as a right back. But remember an Adam Virgo?
Oh, mate.
Is he in next? He might be centre half or somebody or something like that.
Centre half pick. I've not picked him, but he's got to mention my centre half.
Right. Okay. So we're not swaying. So has anybody swayed anybody else? What we're thinking? You're not having Chaduri at right back, are you, planning?
It's because of the smile and the song, But I mean, that's 2 years mentioned them, to be fair.
And but you both mentioned Toljan as well. John, are you going to fold in this and maybe you Toljan or what?
I can't forgive that own goal. Honestly, when I thought about right backs, Chaduri was the first name that jumped at me, and I'm sticking with that. I can't.
What was Chaduri? Was he Chinese?
Korean, I think.
Korean.
We've got, see, by the way, see the Asian market. We've not done very well with the Asian market at all, have we? Apart from Nakamura, obviously.
Nakamura and Key.
Aye.
Key, what a player Key was, by the way.
I know.
Very underrated.
Remember
but this
that?
is the
Who was
worst
that other
of them.
boy? I think he was Korean as well. That we had. This is going to be a bit off topic, but he looked a player. But then we got rid of him. That Koki Mizuno.
Oh, the right winger.
Aye.
So I think because you're mentioning some of my bad players here.
Right.
I've got him in the midfield.
Right, I think we're going to go Chaduri then.
I go for it.
Chat right back. Ideal. Right. Let's go left back next. John, I'll go to you first. Left back. Let me hear it.
Edson Braithwaite. And I don't think that's going to be up for debate.
I
surely no.
I think there might be a debate. I've got a few names down here that might be debatable. Why Braithwaite then? What did he do wrong?
Well, we got him on loan for, was it Bayern?
Bayern Munich it was, aye.
It was one of Mowbray's signings, and he came in with all this. It was meant to be world class. But it was absolutely hopeless, useless, done absolutely nothing, completely forgettable. I'm surprised. Like you say, forgettable, but it was a name that jumped out instantly.
Aye.
But I can't. If you were to ask me, did he play well in any games? I couldn't point any point at all where I seen him in a Celtic jersey. In the handful of games that he did play, where I was like, he was decent.
I remember being quite excited. See, a bit like Toljan as well, because they're coming for these like massive teams, and being a bit excited about these players. And Braithwaite was one that I remember when he came in thinking,
aye. I think we've got a player here.
He's rank rotten, wasn't he?
So did you know he
rocked up in the World Cup final that year?
Aye. He got a runners-up medal with Holland.
Aye.
No bother. Absolutely.
But Laxalt got in the team of the year, and he's third side, so
debatable too. I know.
Right, Fanny, what have we got?
Well, a wee special mention from Mo Kamara. How can you know? He was just. It was a wee calamity, wasn't it? But nah, I can't go away from Braithwaite either. Like the boy just, like I say, came in for Bayern, big reputation, Dutch internationalist, and was rank, absolute rank rotten, and like we just touched on, somehow rocked up after leaving us, somehow rocked up and played in the World Cup final, and I by all accounts, what I remember, he had a decent game. I know Holland got beat, but he had a decent game. But just one of my memories of him, and it came out in the press later on. It was Ross County in the cup we played, and he wasn't even in the squad. He got told he wasn't in the squad, so he just went him. It's like
his attitude was stinking.
He just didn't want to be there. He was here to get his fitness up, and that was it.
Who would he have had inside him at the time? Then would it have been McManus and Caldwell inside him at the time.
Must have been because it was 2010 he was here, so it would have been about then. But it's just it was terrible. So you can't even
blame that he's covering for a centre half or that then, can you?
He was coming in at left back, and that was it. And it was, he came in under Mowbray, who was ranked rotten. It wasn't the best of seasons, but this guy was terrible, absolutely terrible. And how he played in the World Cup final to this date, I don't know.
Well, I think you're in agreement for once. I don't think I would have had a Mabos, to be honest with you. Mo Kamara's up there, and we're forgetting about Mr. Bolly, who's pretty much was the start of the demise of our season. him pissing off to Benidorm or whatever it was for a jolly and started the whole
Benidorm's a
COVID
good place to go to, Willie.
Aye, it is. It's not bad, mate. So, we're in agreement for a change, guys. We've got
Aye.
Graphite at left back.
Aye, has to be.
Aye, I would say so.
Has to be.
Like I say, there's bound to be guys that are worse off than this, but pre 95.
We know
And this
really.
is another thing. Aye, there probably is pre-95, like older guys that are absolutely useless. But there might even be some that were signed and just they've been that shocking. We've completely forgot all about them.
Or it's just because we thought Bradford was that bad.
It's a difficult one, because you've got guys that come in and they maybe come in for big money and they've only played a handful of games and they're gone again, and you do kind of forget about them. See the likes of like Mo Kamara, who was here. He was here for a decent length of time. You remember him because he was shite constantly over a period of time. So it's difficult. It's difficult to choose it on. That's what I was worried about before I did this. I was thinking about putting some sort of. He needs to have played 10 games for the club as well. But you need to remember you need to actually talk about the big name flops that have turned up on big money that haven't played only a handful of games. And there's only a reason these players don't play many games, and that's why we need to talk about them, because it's the Notes 11.
The Notes 11.
So, centre half. We're going to have two centre halves. So, Franny, I'll go to you first. Give me your two centre halves that you went for.
Well, my two centres, for me, it could only be the main man himself, Raphael Shite. Shite by name, shite by nature. The guy just, he came in for about 5 million by John Barnes, and it was just, oh man, it was a disaster. I think hardly kicked a ball for us. And like, he'd had caps for Brazil, but I think it later came out that for players to get moves, obviously because of the work permit situation back then, it was a lot harder. Like, teams were given Brazil were giving teams their caps and all that just so they could get a move and it would support the local teams. And it was just, how this guy cost 5 million, I will never ever know. Honestly, don't know. See,
to be fair, I don't care if you're winning Ballon d'Ors. If your name's shite, a Scottish club should not be signing you, because it's just the papers are just rubbing their hands, aren't they?
I know. And
just rubbing their hands.
And he lived up to his name, didn't he?
He sure did.
Lived up to it. And then my second one, it's for the Asian market again. It's a wonder himself, Dewey. Rocked up for 45 minutes at Clyde, and I think he must have been called for the army or something at half time, because he was never ever seen again. He must have been called up for service, because he played 45 minutes against Clyde and was never seen. I mean, by all accounts, he was a loan signing, and I think the guy had about 30 odd caps for China. Now, I've not got to profess to know how good the Chinese football was back then, but going on him, it was not great. He just, he'll go down. I reckon he'll arguably go down as Celtic's worst ever signing. Dewey. But I also had like Adam Virgo in there as well, like the guy that played every position. I had Josh Thompson, but he was a young laddie. Stefan Onshaw, I thought, could be a shout. He was a shout, but I just couldn't go away for the two. I had Tebley in, and the main man Marvin Compa. I've got another but you've just got these cult heroes that just can't go in just for, I don't know why I couldn't put Compa and all the guys in, but I couldn't go away for Raphael Shite and Dewey.
Oh, listen, it's two decent choices there, to be fair. John, what have you went for?
The exact same two. I'm not even going to lie. Raphael Shite and Dewey. It is, mate.
Really?
Aye.
I genuinely thought somebody would have maybe put up a fight for Shane Duffy this year, like, because every time a ball's went to the top, it looks like he's fucking towing a caravan as he's trying to chase it back.
And what the hell is he looking at when he's doing it?
Exactly. It's like that David Eard meme that was going about years ago.
Gary Hooper.
But no, I picked the exact same two, Dewey and Shite. Do you want to know an interesting thing though? Because when I picked, like, off, I think Shite is going to be on everybody's list, but see, I tried to look up just to get a wee bit of stats in terms of how many times he played for Celtic and that, and I came across an article, and this might surprise you, but
he did get called for the National Guard, and that's how we didn't.
No Dewey and Shite. But he was apparently touted to be a future Brazilian captain by none other than Mr. R9.
Aye. Remember, R9's got a checkered past.
Aye, but for a player of that calibre to turn around and say, this boy's a future Brazilian captain, you're thinking, all right, maybe he's 5 million price tag's worth it then.
But he shaved his whole head and left the fringe once.
I know, that's fine.
No, in all seriousness, my favourite, like my generation, my favourite player is R9. So
Aye.
that's big props. But whatever happened to Shite? Did he just went back to Brazil?
I think
I
so.
think
I think he
actually,
just went. Do you know? Just I'm sure he went back to Brazil on loan. He went to a couple of loan hangs in that of back
aye,
in
but
Celtic.
apparently he was half decent. Like in Brazil before he came to us, he was a decent. He was like, or at least in the Brazilian leagues, he was fairly decent. I think what we need to remember is a lot of these guys coming in, it's a completely different climate. Like Brazil to Scotland is night and day, and then the style of football and everything else. And some guys can't cope, and we've seen it numerous times. That doesn't necessarily mean they might have been shite for us. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're absolute dog shite as players.
That is true, mate. To be fair, you walk the streets of Brazil and there's samba dancers half naked, beautiful ladies, and you're going through Glasgow and there's just junkies hanging from lampposts and that, eh? So it must be a bit of a shock to the system, to be fair. But again, you can't say now, boy, for a Scottish club called shite and just expect, you know, you're going to get hammered.
Correct.
So it's not up for debate then, is it?
Nah.
This one.
No.
By the way, a couple of notable mentions you didn't. Like again, Shane Duffy. For me, Dewey was bad and shite was bad too. But Duffy he might have sneaked in there. A couple of notable mentions I've got. Majstorovic. I thought he was dreadful when he came in.
I wouldn't say he was brilliant, but I thought he done a job.
And what about is Big Effie not getting a shout just because he's a cult hero as well?
I see. I've kind of left boys like that just simply for the novelty.
Effie was a bomb scare, but he did have some decent performances, mind. He
some
wasn't just
some of them were against us for living.
but he wasn't just shite off the bat. Like it wasn't just a case of for the minute he put a jersey on, he was shite to the minute he 10.5. Because he did have some decent performances. Granted, 90% of them were shite, but
I think you've got it right, to be fair. Dewey's a stick on. It's the same, man. Dewey and against Clyde. I think every boy, these. I don't want to sound harsh and say they were a pub team because they weren't a pub team. But the guy you don't get hooked at half time for nothing. He was getting for fun.
If you're getting turned inside out off Clyde and then play 45 minutes and that's your only appearance, then I think that's
you're trying to mark a plumber and he's just turning you inside out. It's just not happening, is it?
Nah.
No.
Right, on to right wing. John, I'll go to you first again. By the way, I found this really tough. The right winger.
Aye, I found it tough.
I've got two names here, so I'll let you give your shouts first, and then we can discuss.
I'll tell you who I settled on.
Right.
It was Alexander Tonev. Just because, what was it, in his debut against us, it was that racist comment against Shea Logan, and then ended up with a 7-game ban. On your debut, another player that came in with might be a reputation and just done nothing. Absolutely hee-haw. But another one I had in mind that almost got in was Wakaso.
There's a name plucked out of the sky.
Aye, so I was struggling though, and I was trying to think. I was like, who we had that's really, really bad? Tonev again was one that jumped out at me, and that whole 7-game ban after his debut is something that immediately stuck out for me. But Wakaso was another name that I could remember that done absolutely hee-haw. And
I don't want to pissing your pants or that, and I don't know if Franny says, but was Tonev not a left winger?
I hope not, because I've got him at right mid.
No, I thought he was right mid.
I think somebody was taking the piss on Wikipedia. Right, Franny, what are you saying then?
Tonev. Funny
You're
enough,
joking?
Tonev. No.
I've used to been on the phone to each other and chatting before this, or what?
I just think, like, for a guy that had a longer game suspensions than he did actual appearances, how could he not be in the team? The guy played, I think, 6 games and got suspended for 7. You're like, and like obviously the racist comment he left in a cloud of shame because of the racist comment and stuff. But so Tonev made the cut for me, if you can call it that. But I also had our man Koki Mizuno in there because I felt like he was a right mid, but it was just one of these set guys signed off the back of Nakamura, and he was there just to sell the jerseys really. And I had Momo Salah and I don't know how you named it. Like, I've got to say Freddie Ljungberg came with, I know he was about 35 at the time, but he done nothing. Absolutely done nothing.
I did think he players like that. But
Ljungberg was my shout.
Ljungberg
was my shout, mate.
I avoided guys like that though because of the career they had. They came to us at the end of the careers because at that point then you're
they didn't have much they want at Celtic, but
I know, but like you said, they're approaching their 40s, and they were done at that point. Their
Aye,
legs
but
were away.
this isn't. We'll let the OAPs get away with it. This is the worst 11.
I
Freddie
get
was-
that, but I don't think he was like. I think there's worse folk, is what I'm saying.
What about?
Aye.
Let
Give
me
him a
throw
bit of
one more.
credit.
Let me throw one more name in here. What about Sved?
I don't. Well, okay. Did they
He's not
play?
had a
He's actually
chance.
played for us.
By the
He's
way,
not
when
had
he
a
did
chance.
play, I thought he looked like a player
But
Aye,
so,
and
how could he go in the worst 11 then?
because
He's
he's
done
one
the
of the
job.
worst signings.
Aye.
We've done it under Rodgers' nose and all the rest of it.
I suppose in that sense.
In that respect, I
Aye.
guess.
I would have, listen. I would have pushed for Freddie, but you guys are unanimous and Tony, so we have to put the
Exactly.
racist in, don't we?
That's it. That's it.
Right, left wing next. This is another one I struggled with, to be honest
No.
with you.
Nah.
No,
on.
Freddie's
Stick
got
on.
it.
Oh,
Stick
I'm going to
on.
go to Franny first, and I'm guessing he's got to say Reggie, but
No,
Franny, what
but
are we going with?
Reggie will get a wee mention in that. Him and Steve Guppy get a mention. Steve Guppy was like your old school left winger, James Forrest, ran with no neck and things like that. But I've got to get to Dirk Berichter. Came for 3 million and then died. The guy got every injury in the game apart from death. It was just all he seemed to do was be injured.
This
And
is
then
another
this-
disappointing one because I remember, I think we played Kilmarnock or something the first game of the season. I think we won 5-1 or something. And am I right in saying he scored?
Aye, but it didn't
And he
even
looked
last
a player.
45 minutes.
I know.
It didn't even last 45 minutes.
And I remember seeing this guy and thinking, yes. And then
I'm telling you, he
never
got
ever
every
seen him
he got
again.
every injury bar death. It was madness.
Well, where did you know? How do you know he's not had death?
Probably did now.
Aye.
But I mean, it didn't help himself with the fact that when he left Celtic, he said he left because he stayed because his contract was that good. No, it's probably
Aye.
because he couldn't pass a medical anywhere. He was never fit to. He's probably never fit to go on a plane. It was the easiest. It was apart from the centre halves. It was the easiest position for me was Dirk Berichter at left mid. I don't know what you can say about the guy, man.
Interesting. He is on my list, to be fair. He's on my list. John, what are you saying?
That was my pick as well. Borichter.
Jesus Christ. Used to
But I mean,
used to have been FaceTiming in the bath and that, saying,
Aye.
oh, what you pick for left mid? What you pick for left mid?
no, but he surely he's a shoe in, man. Like I said, he came for an Ajax team. He was made a bit of hype about him, and then he was just the entire time he was injured. And then when he came out with the comment saying, I stayed for the money. He absolutely no interest in playing football. And it wouldn't surprise me if his injuries were all lies as well. He was just on it for a pie packet.
Oh, it was bad, man. Bad.
He was poor. So no mentions for Reggie Stinker, no?
No, I had
He's
him in there,
another
but
cult hero.
I had him in there, but I just
It's
can't
funny.
get by Dirk Berichter.
It's so
Can't get
funny.
by
See
Dirk
when you
Berichter.
actually sit and discuss all these things, it's so funny how many players that were terrible for us, but we still
Aye.
love them, eh?
I know, like Reggie
See, to be
Blinker.
fair, like here, we talked about Anonis and Mo Kamaras and Reggie Bunkers. I don't think it was a matter of them not trying, because I feel like they did give 100% every time.
I
They
think
were
that
just
gives you a
shite.
chance. Aye. But I think
Aye.
You need to think
I mean,
though, with Blinker
probably-
came in to replace Di Canio, so
Aye.
instantly you were comparing them. It's like you're taking a step back right off the bat.
I know.
How long after that did Bobby Pettit come in?
I love Peter.
I know, me too, that's what I'm saying. So, like, you're talking about him not getting a chance.
Like Pettit could have been the worst player ever, but when I seen him rocking up at the Vegas convention at the DJ booth, I was like, nah, he's a legend.
The coolest
He's a
cat
legend. I was like, so random. Like he had a decent career at Celtic. When they say he had the best career, but he was just somehow just rocked up at the Celtic convention at a pool party. Like the pool party they're having, there was Bobby Pettit up at the DJ booth doing a wee set.
I feel like
alright.
he could have been one of these players for us that was, and he is a cult hero. He's always at these, like you say, these conventions.
Aye.
And I was at one. I was at one of the, was it double or treble celebration thing that they did at the SACC, and it was similar. Walking about, looking at all the things, I turn around and Bobby Petter's on the decks, and I'm thinking, am I dreaming here? What's going on, man?
He was sound. He was really sound guy to speak to as well. I remember like years and years and years ago, we done a tour at Celtic Park, and he was at the stadium at the time, and he tagged along for a bit, and he was just chatting away to everybody. Like he just had the time. He was just keen time to everybody to answering questions and that.
By the way, the boy he was electric, wasn't he? His
rapid.
face was frightening, and aye.
I think he was just a confidence player, eh? He was just a confidence player at the end of the day.
And he could turn a boy inside out and all, no bother.
So
But this is a worst 11. Let's get back on track.
Barigter it is. I could sit here for hours talking about these guys. Barigter on the left. So, centre mid now. This wasn't so difficult for me.
I found it quite difficult.
Did you?
To settle on a name, aye.
Aye, well, to be fair, I'm not picking a team. I'm just writing down. I've got about 8 names here, but I've not actually picked them, so I can understand why it may be difficult. But John, I'll throw it to you first. What we thinking? What we got at centre
You want
mid?
both of them?
Aye, give us both of them. And
Willow Flood. I just thought he was absolute mince. Didn't know why we signed him in the first place. I distinctly remember him only being there a year, and when he left, he says he regretted ever coming. Claimed to be a Celtic fan, but just did he not get his debut against Rangers or not?
Possibly.
I can't mind, but just absolutely woeful for me. And the other one's Eyal Berkovic.
Oh,
good shout.
And I'll never forget him. Mind he scored a goal, and then he turned around and he was giving the fingers to the Celtic fans. And not just that, he was obviously a bit of an arsehole as well. And I'll never forget when, I think, was it West Ham or something like that, and Hearts
he deserved that, but the face.
I'm not saying it. I don't know what caused that, but obviously he was a bit of a dick, eh? Like,
why was he doing that to the fans? Was he getting it stinking off the fans?
I think he was getting it stinking for a wee while, like, because
he was mince.
He was just shy of 6 million when he signed. I think he was the biggest transfer for a Scottish team at the time.
When he came in, he was a big name, and he didn't settle at all. He never showed his promise at all, did he? So,
but the second you turn around and you turn on your own fans.
His game's a bogey.
Granted, maybe he got a bit of stick, but didn't he act like that?
His game's a bogey a bit there after that.
He's like general. I think his attitude was just stinking. Another one that didn't really want to be there.
And you said Willow Flood as well.
Berkovic and Willow Flood.
I've got Willie Flood down here as well. I think he's another one. Like, I don't think he was the most talented, but I don't think he ever left anything out in the park. And I always remember him scoring a screamer. I can't remember who it was against, but I do have him down there. I always think he looked like plug for the Beanos. Not the most attractive man in the world football, anyway. But Franny, let's go to you. Who have you got in at centre mid?
Well, I've also got Willow Flood. I thought it just looked like a guy that won a competition to sign for Celtic. Just so at his depth. It was just never should have been there. It was just one of these things. He was really good at Dundee United, and it was just one of the ones we'll sign him so it weakens the competition. Really, that's all it had for me. I just thought he was just always at his depth. Never, not a bit of talent. Like he did, like you say, he would run about all day, but you need a wee bit of something to back up with, because Celtic fans will. Doesn't matter who you are. If you give a bit of effort in that, we'll give you a chance, but you've got to have a wee bit after that. You've got to have a wee bit after that, and he feels it was maybe just couldn't quite rise up to it, and it was a bit too much for him. Maybe, but I don't know. But the other guy I've got in is David Hanna, another ex-Dundee United player. Honestly, just thought he was like a geography teacher. Looked like a geography teacher. Played like a geography teacher. Probably wore brown clays at night too. It just looked boring. Played boring. David Hanna.
I've got another name there as well.
How he actually played that many games, I didn't ken. Again, he was part of the squad that stopped the 10, but he was just a really, really average player, I thought. I completely forgot about him, so he absolutely forgettable. Played around about 50 games for Celtic over a 3-year period, but I didn't get to sign him. But I also had a Van der Snow in there. Efren Juarez, another guy that came with a reputation, just never really settled.
By the way, I had a season ticket at the time when Juarez came in, and we played a qualifier, Champions League qualifier. I can't remember who it was against, and he was unbelievable. He was like Stan Petrov. He was box to box. He was hard day in a challenge, and I remember looking at him and turned to my dad at the time and thinking, this guy is unreal. And then all of a sudden, he just turned into absolute crap.
But he was a good player.
I thought, he was. He was
a good player. I've also got Roy Keane in, by the way, but I just couldn't pick.
I was going to throw that out. I wanted to see John. John was saying he's got another name he forgot about. John, what were you going to say?
Berget.
The Norwegian boy.
Aye. He was another one that came to us with a reputation as well.
Came for Cardiff or something, I think, at the time. Right.
But he was mince.
Roy Keane would have been in my team if it wasn't for that game at Ibrox. Him and Lennon just bossed it in the middle of the park.
Well, I was surprised that none of you had him in there because for me, growing up, he was one of my favourite players. He was just an absolute man mountain grab like that UV game where he got the booking and then just getting the team through himself.
Mm-hmm.
But when he came to us, he was again another one of these signings that we sign when they're past their prime and we just sign them for the name. It feels like we sign these guys just to sell shirts.
Well, he only came in because he got chucked out of Man United. He wouldn't have been here any other way.
Absolutely end his career, nowhere else to go.
Aye.
And
there's no reason he was there.
He got a chance to play for Celtic for a bit.
Him and Lennon bossed at one game at Ibrox, and I couldn't pick him. Couldn't put him in.
Right. Let me throw another few names at you then that you've not mentioned, right? So you both went for Flood, haven't you?
Aye.
Right, so we have to stick him in.
Right.
What about, you said Snow, Flood. Zheng Ji?
Oh my Jesus, I totally forgot about him.
Another Asian import.
Oh my Jesus.
We're not doing well in the Asian market, are we?
No.
Did he know, was he know there, maybe there on like, he came in on loan, but we terminated it like after a month or something?
Sure.
It seems like we got Nakamura in, and then when Strachan was in, and it was like, right, we need to hit this Asian market because we found a good one, and then we've literally rocked up to the Chinese pub league and went, heel day. He was horrendous, wasn't he?
I'd actually totally forgot about him, mate.
I've got Big Kouassi. Malumbu.
It could be a shout.
Aye. And this one breaks my heart. Scott Allen. I thought he was going to be a player, and we never ever gave him a chance.
I never had the chance. But again,
I wouldn't have put him in simply because I wasn't given the chance. I think it was. I just always got the impression with Scott Allen, he was bought, so Rangers didn't sign him.
Aye, agreed. But you're saying that when you're saying he wasn't given a chance, neither was Dewey. He got hooked off after a half.
He got called for National Guard.
Right. Sorry, guys. John, what was your other centre mid after
it was Berkovic.
And you went with David Hanna.
Aye.
I'm happy to go Zheng Ji though. I completely forgot.
Aye. So did I.
Aye. We're going Zheng Ji.
Go for it.
Oh, the host has got a winner. Jeez, I'm not involved in these bath time, FaceTime things.
I know. So we're feeling bad. We're feeling bad for you there.
Right, next we've got our two centre forwards. Now, again, this is an interesting one because
there's a lot.
And it's just you're taking it like we've talked about previous. It's like guys maybe who haven't been given a chance, but there's also guys that did get given a chance. There's also guys that were brought in like the Lundbergs and Keanes that they were big names, but they didn't stand the test of time. So I'm interested to hear this one. So I'll go to Franny first. Who have we got up top?
Well, the two names I'll go through the names I had. I had Carlton Cole in there. How he ended up at Celtic, I'll never know. The guy just
again another name at the end of his career.
Could not run. Like I can't even say he scored a goal because I don't know what that was when he actually somehow got. It fell, done like about 3 tumbles and somehow hurt up his back heel, I think. And I think it's still taking about 4 deflections and he was only a yard out.
And it looked like he was running through Trico as he went after
it. It was nuts. But then he had the song, we've got go. Oh,
they can't put him in then.
No,
that's a banger.
That's a good song. We're good for Celtics. We're good for a song. And Chris Killen, another one that just looked like a geography teacher, really. Just was rotten. Just signed for Hibs because he was played decent at Hibs. Amido Balde could have been in it, but he's always bigging us up on Twitter, so I'll cut him some slack. Timo Pukki, another one that came in with hype, but I think it was just a confidence thing and just the fans got on his back because he was one of these players, although he does look like he obviously does run about at Norris, but I think he's one of the boys that because he wasn't constantly running, it's like bursts and stuff. It looked like he wasn't trying when in reality it probably is. It was just the type of player he was.
I like Pukki, and we saw after he left Celtic what he's done. And
exactly.
You can see there's a player in him.
I think it's just a confidence thing with him.
Not just that, tactically we never set up to compliment some of these guys as well.
Who did we see when Pukki was there? Who did we have in at the time? Is it Radke and Hartson and that, or was that?
I'm trying to think because it was 13-15. So who would have had then?
Was that Hesselink and McDonald?
There'd been boys like that, and cause it was only 5 years ago. Samaras was probably a bit there as well. Hooper and Stokes and that would have been.
I cannot remember Bookie being given a proper chance. And he's obviously showed it since he's left it. He knows where the back of the net is.
Aye, exactly. Then,
in fact, do we not have that Rasmussen at the same time as him?
Aye, I forgot
Danish boy.
I forgot about him, I know.
Totally forgot about him. I had Colin Kazim-Richards in as well. The guy had about 75 clubs before he came to us. Why would you touch a guy like that? I'll never know. I just don't know.
What, is he no banging in the goals for Derby now though?
Aye. But again, that'll be 76 club he's been at.
That's true.
And then
who have you went for?
I had Henri Camara. I wanted to pick him, but he came in to replace Larsson, was bold enough to take the 7 jersey. But by God, mate, you should have just kept away from it. You should have. But I've went for, how can you not pick Mo Bangura? How can Mo Bangura not be in it? I mean, it's Larsson's only mistake. He came recommended for the King, and it was, could you even say he was a flop? That'd be a compliment to the guy. It was just, the guy was rotten, loaned, and he actually played against us. And usually when a guy plays against you as a loan player, he usually turns in or he'll turn in a performance up. But he was even rotten against us when he played against us. You were like, it's just, the guy just never ever had it. Never had it. Then I went for Nadir Chiefchi to partner him.
Oh, that's interesting.
Another signing that was just signed because he played well. I think he had about 4 games against Rangers that he played really good. Then we signed him, and he thought it was Berbatov the way he pranced about the park. He just never moved. And just hated the guy.
There's a theme here tonight for Franny. We shouldn't be signing boys for Dundee United, should we?
I know. I think that's about 4 I've got.
That's true, by the way, because Zaluska was an Aryan.
I know, Zaluska was all right.
Nah.
Crazy goalies, man. You've got to love them.
Right, so you went with Bangura and Chiefchi.
Aye.
That's a decent forward line. That's enough to scare any kind of half say.
Aye. I do be in Raphael's right.
Right, John, what were you going for?
I had Mo Bangura as well, and my other boy was Henri Camara. And pretty much for the same reasons as Fanny says, he's not going to get excused because who he came in to replace.
I did. And because he was bold enough to take the 7 jersey. But he shouldn't have taken the 7.
No, not having it.
No, I'm not having it. He was terrible.
He was poor.
Aye.
To be fair.
And he did have big boots to fill. You take that number 7 jersey, and to come in after Larsson, you're always going to be compared. But it wasn't even like he was even like he never. I don't think anybody ever expected him to hit the height Larsson did, but he never even came close to it. I mean, he was just poor.
Did we get him for Wigan?
No, Wolves. Came in
on
loan for Wolves, but I think Wolves had signed him for decent cash, and I think the agreement was.
Did we not get him on fee?
Nah, I'm sure it was a loan, mate, because he only was there for a season.
He was just.
And I'm sure, I think part of the deal was if he played X amount of games, we had to pay some sort of money. We had to make it permanent.
I find it hilarious that you let go. Well, you don't let go; it's not an option. But arguably the greatest player ever to pull on the hoops, who's went to Barcelona, and you bring in Henri Camara.
I know. Mental.
Mental. I don't get it at all.
I thought you were coming up with some random name there for the forward there, Wally.
No. I've got a few names.
But you were getting somebody the big.
I'm surprised you haven't went with. See, to be fair, for me, Carlton Cole was terrible.
He was terrible. But again, he was another guy who was approaching his 40s. His legs were away from him. Another signing.
I mean, I think he was only 31 when he came in, but he was done.
Because if you're talking about players like that, then you can go back to midfield and say Janino as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he did all right though. He wasn't.
Had some good games. He just didn't live up to what you thought you were getting.
Carlton Cole, honestly. But Carlton Cole was about as much use as a fart in a spacesuit, man. He was horrendous, man.
Aye.
Right, let me throw a few more names at you then. What about Fortuny?
Oh,
no, not having that.
Him. I just totally forgot about him.
Darryl Murphy.
Aye, but no, he was stinking. He was really bad. But then he went. Did he not go to Ipswich and just light it up?
I just started destroying it in League One or something. What about Skepovic?
Oh my Jesus!
He's that bad you can't even remember him.
I mean, you also Ken has just jumped out to that Michu. Is it Michu or something? Miku.
Miku, aye.
Sorry.
I've got him down here, but he played in the Barca game.
I think in fact, he played against Barcelona with Real Sociedad or something at the start of the season and won.
That's right, aye, and then came to us.
I beat them. But he was quite bad as well.
Here's another one again, but
Lasad. Saw these random names coming.
Lasad
was poor as well. Aye.
You should have been on that Wikipedia a bit more, Fanny.
I know, I should have.
Here's another one again. It's a bit more like the Scott Allen one, but Riordan should have hit the heights for us, and he never got the chance. Obviously, there were rumours about him pumping people he shouldn't have and all that, but I don't know, boys. We've got Kamara and who did
I think Bangura's it.
Bangura's a stick on. You know what? When I knew I was going to do this, I reached out to a few of my friends and said, listen, I'll go on it later on, but I've got a few more older friends, should we say, and pretty much everybody I spoke to, one of the first names they came out with was Mo Bangura, so he's a certainty. He's got to go in. But I think we're struggling for the second.
I mean, I'd be open to Carlton Cole, like I would be.
What about you, John? You went with Kamara, didn't you? I feel like you're very passionate about this. Put Henry Kamara in there.
I can't, man. I can't agree to that. The confidence to take the numbers.
We both agree he was poor. I think all three of us can agree he was poor, Franny. But the issue is you're giving him a pass because
he was bold.
He had the balls to take the number 7.
I agree he was poor, mate, but I don't think he was as poor as Carlton Cole's.
Nah.
I'm happy if you want to throw Cole in, but again, I avoided all these guys that were passed up.
Carlton Cole it is.
Right.
So we've got our team. We've got a 4-4-2.
Wow, what a team.
What
that team.
So
I've got it written in a bit of paper next to me, man.
By the way, you know the worst thing is, I think that team could finish third in the SPL.
They could, like.
Nah.
No.
That team's getting relegated.
I don't actually think they would.
Right, see, before we're going to go on to what we think was our worst manager and worst strips and stuff like that, but I've got to give, like I said at the start, us young pups, we only remember for the mid-90s onwards, so I've reached out to a couple of my friends. I'm trying to say this without sounding disrespectful, like they're OAPs or whatever, but let's say more experienced friends. So I've got to give a big shout out to Tam Smart, my mucker, and my other mate Andy Buchan, who are 2 regular listeners and my 2 friends. I'd love to get them on because they talk as much shite as all the rest of these guys that are on it do. So I'm going to go with Andy. Andy was kept banging on about a player at left back called Anton Rogan.
Heard him, but
apparently everybody used to think his first name was Fuck's Sake. But it was like, fuck's sake, Rogan. Again. Andy was adamant as well that Ian Andrews is the worst keeper we've ever had.
I don't even know who that is.
No, me neither, mate. But he kept bringing him up. I'd love to hear the listeners and the subscribers comment on these guys, because apparently Ian Andrews was worse than he said. Barkas was a close second, right enough. But Wayne Biggins, I've had a look at this guy. I've heard
his name, but that was before I can remember.
Apparently he was brought in. I had a wee read. I had a wee look up, and he was 33-year-old and brought in, and everybody was like, "Geez, oh," and he had 4 starts, and apparently it was 4 starts too many. So there is a few. Let me hold on a second to get this up, because Tam sent me a full team. Carl Muggleton again, another keeper that I keep hearing. The names he's mentioned that we've not mentioned yet is Gary Gillespie, Stuart Slater.
See, I've heard stories about Stuart Slater, like
Tony Cascarino. We've mentioned Oliver Terribly, or Oliver Terribly, I used to call him.
Terribly's the one I forgot about him.
A few other names I've not heard. Martin Hayes, Mike Galloway.
Mike Galloway, I've heard that.
So, guys that are listening, please get onto the social media, get on the Twitter, get on the Instagram, or the YouTube channel as well. Comment below. Let us know what your worst 11 is. Let us know about these guys, because I love hearing these stories.
Definitely.
We've had a few stinkers. We've picked a decent team there, I think.
I think you should get a rundown of the team. Are you got it written down?
Aye, I'm going to give it a rundown. So, our team, the Endless Celts podcast team, we've got, which is the Nopes 11. There's Gordon Marshall in the goal, Chad Uri at right back. We've got Edson Bravheit at left back. Shite and Dewey at centre half. Can't believe I just said that on there. Bonnev on the right, Barigter on the left. This is just injury list Sarust. Willow Flood or Plug for the Beano, centre mid alongside Zheng Ji. And we've got the unbelievably talented front two, Mo Bangura and Carlton Cole. Now, if that's not a team to scare the opposition, I do not know what is. What do you think, boys?
Oh,
It's
phenomenal.
shocking.
Like I
Phenomenal
say,
in how shocking it is.
It's not getting the 21st century boys teams that are run for that are scary anyway.
I know. I don't know about.
Mate, that would be
With some
cricket
scoreline. Some scoreline against our team.
I think you're
I
right.
reckon we could organise 11 and probably have a chance against them.
So we've got our worst 11. Let's move on to the manager. I'm going to go to John first with this. Who's the worst manager we can have to set up that team?
It's only down to two for me. It was John Barnes and Tony Mowbray. And I was trying to think of pros for each of them to try and keep them in, and I couldn't. So I ended up just flipping my coin for it, and Mowbray won out. So Mowbray it is.
To be fair to Mowbray, I think I'd rather have McGady at left back than Bradfight,
Aye.
like he did against St Mirren.
Aye.
That was
What about you,
madness that
Fanny?
day. I mean, the two names I had were them, but I had to go for John Barnes simply because he was there about a month less. He was the shortest reigning manager we've ever had, and as I say, that was by a month and all that. Aaron Mowbray, but he broke the Scottish transfer record with Belkovic, and had brought in Raphael Scheitz. So it was like 12 million. Well, I was just there 10 million on two boys and two, as we've said, two unsuccessful players. Brought in Petrov, but just didn't really work with him that good. He's infamous for the Cali Thistle game. And then, his managerial career started with Celtic in '99. And he's, only had 3 jobs after that with Jamaica and Tranmere. And each one lasted under a year. Every job he's been in. So, how it couldn't be him, I didn't ken. I honestly didn't ken how it couldn't be him.
I agree, mate. They were the two names I had, obviously. Again, keep banging on about it. We're just young pups, and everybody I've spoke to says that Lou Macari was the worst manager we've ever had in our history. But I agree with you. Mowbray was horrendous, obviously. But John Barnes for me.
I'm happy.
You mentioned Ted. You said that yourself, mate. And I always remember a story. I went to see one of these smokers, and it was Petrov talking, and he says that John Barnes was just horrendous. I'm going to give you a couple of wee stories. He says that in training, John Barnes he got involved, and he would be so intense. He would generally go on 2-footed on the players and stuff like that. And Petrov came over, and he's just a young Bulgarian boy. He still doesn't really know the lingo, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And I think John Barnes was putting him at right back. If I'm not, I think he was playing him at right back and stuff like that.
I think it was.
I'm not a right back, man. I'm a centre mid, trying to get that across. So you imagine you come into a new club, new culture, and you don't know the lingo, and your manager's bearing down on you. And let's be fair, John Barnes wasn't the slimmest of guys, and he's coming down on you to go on 2-footed. It's enough to give you a bit of. And I know the thing is with Petrov as well. He says that the year after he heard O'Neill come in, and O'Neill sat him down and said, "Your contract's an absolute disgrace. You're going to be a big part of this team," and so on and so forth. So I think it shows you how much a manager has the influence. A manager has an influence on a team, and
Definitely.
I think that's what the team's unfortunately lacking at the moment. But John Barnes for me, what a player, but as a manager, no, thank you. And then you had the King alongside him too.
I was just about to say that. What makes that
it?
even worse, it's hard to take in, is, like you say, he's a phenomenal player, terrible manager, but to have Dalglish and still, it's just shocking.
Arguably Scotland's best ever player, man, in there, and it was just... it never worked, did it? Didn't work.
The only thing they did was bring Petrov in for us, I think. I'm not sure about any other signings, but...
I think Petrov's the only one to note,
Aye. So, John Barnes, stick on. Worst manager. This team is looking worse and worse.
I didn't give him a chance on third with John Barnes' gaffer.
Right, this is next. I think this might be my favourite bit. We're going to go into the kits. The worst ever kits we've had, and we've had some stinkers. Although saying that, I struggled with the home kit.
I say,
struggled.
It's difficult with the hoops,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It is.
Franny,
But
I'll
there
go
was
to you.
one I settled on.
Me
that's
too,
it.
just one. I'm going to go to Franny first with the home kit. What do you think of the home kit, mate?
Well, it was between, like, mine was fairly recent. It was between New Balance's last kit, so the 1921, and their first one. Because like, the last one, it had like the wee white bits and stuff. It was so boring. They're so boring. I was tempted to go with it, but I went with the 2016's kit. It was like, it had the wee stupid thin white bits in between the big hoops. So it was sort of like, it was a big green hoop, I feel like, a thick one. But either top and bottom, it had the two wee thin ones and the
Aye.
green one above it, if
I
you
know
can
what
remember what it had. And it also, like, on the top of the sleeves, the shoulders, were like, it was like they ran out of material for the green bits for the front and just gave up and had the big white bit. But then you turned it around in the back and they were like, oh, there's more hoops on the back than there was on the front.
You sure it wasn't Castore? I made it.
Possibly, by the way, and they just put a New Balance badge on it. And then just for some random reason, they had like a wee Hitler sort of attache on the sleeves, on the cuffs of them. I was like, it was a terrible, terrible effort for New Balance. Like, and it was a first go at it.
Can I make a confession? I quite like that strip.
Well,
I'll be honest as well.
I
I don't think New Balance made. I don't think they were great. They weren't the best by any means, but they weren't bad.
What you went for, John?
This was actually the first Celtic top I ever remember owning, and it was the 94-95 season. Umbro released it. I don't know if you will remember, but it had the Umbro logo in the hoops, but they were alternating like vertical and horizontal, and the hoops themselves were absolutely massive. They only had like 4 or something on the top. It was just stinking. It was and they had the big massive. Remember, the players had the massive numbers on the sleeves as well.
oh, and they had
I
on the
do
shorts
remember.
and that.
Aye,
It's like a
naturally.
big American football team and that.
it was rotten, man.
Oh, I'm googling it as we speak.
So mad,
it's
isn't
not
it?
nice.
So mad. That's
It's
no,
not- it's not-
no, I like that kit.
Aye, that's all right
I like
actually.
that. Oh, wait, there, man, the 94-95, John.
Aye, see
Aye.
for me, anything that's got C.R. Smith along the front, I'm game like.
Is that the
No,
one? Like,
man.
if I'm looking at the right one, is that the collar that had like the sort of hoops, if you like, round the collar?
Aye, it is. And you've
Aye.
got the Umbro, in the stripes.
And the
and
stripes,
the,
but
and the
they're
green,
like
and the green hoops.
No, I'm.
I like that, man. I'm not
I like
having
that one. No, you're out of order there, John. You're
man,
absolutely
that
out
is
of
stinking.
You're
See,
out
for
of order,
me,
John.
I went very recent with mine when I thought, and it was in the 1920 that you mentioned, Franny, where there was no hoops on the shoulders. It was just white on the shoulders, broken hoops, and I remember there being a big uproar. Did you say that was the last New Balance? Kit?
Aye. By the way, I think I've got it the wrong way around. I think that is the kit. Aye, that is the kit I did pick. The one with like, it was the white shoulders.
Broken hoops. It was just all white on the
Aye.
shoulders. Aye, I
Aye,
did not
that
like
is the
that
kit
at
I
all.
went. That is the kit I went with.
Aye. Well, we're outvoting. I'm actually going to go on.
What
On-
season's that?
on-
19.
In 1920. So it's like last year's.
Last
year's.
last New Balance one. Last year's, the home kit. It had the green collar and it had the white shoulders. It was horrible.
Aye, that's the one I was thinking of.
I don't know what John's talking about. I'm going to retroshirts.co.uk tonight to buy that 94-95 shirt. I think
know.
it's
Oh,
beautiful.
That's
mate,
great.
it was fucking
No, I'm liking that, John.
honking.
that's-
Absolutely honking.
Aye, that's the one I'm thinking. Aye, that's exactly the one I'm thinking of, Willie, because I've just googled it as well. Because if you
It's
look at it,
horrendous, man.
it's got the wee Hitler tash on the cuffs of the sleeves as well.
That's right. I know what you're talking about now.
And
I'm
then
like most. I buy most of the shirts, but this year I had to sit out, man. I didn't
then
buy the shirt.
the
and
back
then-
it's got the hoops all the way up, and then it's got magners over the top of
Aye.
it.
And it was not a good season for kits because we're going to go to away kits and they had
Right, so
second
aye.
and third kit that year that were honking as well, right? But 1920 hoops, me and Franny in
Aye.
agreement.
Aye.
You're outvoted, John.
I've
That
just
is
got-
definitely the worst hoops. So
just looking at the way I've wrote down my notes. I've got them mixed up because that was the two kits I'd picked.
right, I asked you to pick an away kit as well. Third kit's included. We're going to pick. This was not as difficult as the hoops because there has been some horrendous kits throughout the years for us. That away kit. So John, I'm going to go you first. What did you come up with?
I'll be surprised if this isn't unanimous, but this is a wee bit earlier. But that 91-92 away one,
Gonna have to go back on Google here.
Aye,
with
it's
the people sponsor, the
Yeah.
red, white, and blue people sponsor.
the big white lightning bolt through the middle of it.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
No,
And
I
it's
think
got
you're a
like
wee bit late.
five different shades of green in the tap as well.
Aye. 91, 92 it is, Fanny, if you're searching.
Oh no, I like that kit, man.
You are Joan,
Oh,
man.
I mean, I appreciate it. I'm sure that got voted in the 20 worst kits in history.
It's
Fanny,
Nate winner.
John Fanny must be kicking about the house in like the pink and purple tracksuit.
Probably, aye.
Kappa tracksuits and that, if he's thinking that's...
I lock Lynn in the house as well, so she doesn't see how kids look dressed.
Is that the only one, John? Was there any notables that you want to mention as well, or is that the one?
Aye, there
definitely
was
stick
the notable mentions. I mean, I love it, to be honest, the Bumblebee, the original Bumblebee tap. But it just reminds me, like, Decanio and all that. And I just, at the time, I think it was laughable and it got some stick, but I think just as times went on, it's just got cult status as well, innit?
I never understood that. I always thought it was a lovely kit.
I
Same
like
with
it. I like it, but I mean, it wasn't pretty by any means. Then there was that silver and pink monstrosity.
That's horrendous. The third kit for the last New Balance season as well. Last season.
Aye.
Third kit, so
to commemorate it was well.
Grey or silver, aye, with the grey, with the pink V.
The pink V.
On the shirt. That's horrendous.
I know. It just looked like a training top, man.
There was that one as well. That was white and it had like yellow and green shapes on it, gold and green.
Aye, we'll get to that one now.
Is that your
Aye.
Tell you another one that I never thought. I thought a lot of people thought it was horrendous. I never thought it was kind of like the snakeskin. I'm pretty sure Henrik broke his leg in it. The black with the like half crest, along with the thin green hoops, the Umbro number.
Thin lime green. I like that.
I like that top, man.
Aye.
I've been given a lot of stick for that. I like that top. Anyway, right, Franny, what are you going for the away kit?
Well, it was that one that John just touched on there for 94, 95. It was like the best. It was white with one green sleeve and one yellow sleeve, and then like I don't know what the design was across it, but it was almost like they taken the Umbro badge, the inner bit of the Umbro badge out, turned it 90 degrees, and then shoved it onto one side of the shirt and changed some of it to green and yellow, and it was, and then had yellow sewn through a green collar and all that. So bad. Such a bad top.
No, it looked like if you gave, you know how you get the sheets of paper and it's got like a kit on it and you design your own. It looks like your child for nurseries just brought it back and went, look. And like, oh my god, that's beautiful, but it's actually horrendous.
And then
I know what you're talking about.
Top it off, they had the green shorts and green socks and that. It was just
beautiful.
So I appreciate times were a wee bit different. Fashion was a wee bit different back then, but nah. Even with my questionable trend sense, we've just worked out that it's
I don't know how you can say you like that 91, 92 away jersey.
Mate, I've just googled that on Twitter. It's 175 quid for that top.
Aye, because
for the one you said is rubbish. It can't be that many if folk are going to pay 175 quid for it.
Aye, clowns like you.
Aye.
The reason for that is because it's everybody burnt theirs, and there's only a couple left.
Maybe.
Aye, that's true.
I think you've got to get a wee special mention as well. The second Bumblebee top. Remember the one? It was like it was mainly green, but it had thick and thin yellow ones. It was like just do the same thing again. The first one worked. Didn't try and make it smart, and then we had that stupid all pink top pretty much.
The New Balance again
to commemorate the 1967 European ticket and that.
Yeah.
I
didn't like the pink top, but
an excuse to bring out a pink strip.
New Balance aren't coming out well, are they?
Nah.
Let's face it. New Balance haven't done very well in this.
They've done all right for themselves because the kit sponsors for one of the most successful periods in their history. So.
Aye, that's true. But then we look back at all these when we're older and we look back at all this footage, it's just honking strips we've got when we're playing. It's not great, is it? So, what are we going to agree on?
Well, I mean, I want to go
Danny
with
likes the Green People's one.
I do.
I don't know.
I mean, arguably, how can you ignore it when it was voted in the 20 worst kits ever?
To be fair, for me it was between that and the grey or silver one that John mentioned with the pink.
Aye, we picked up.
I think there's a reason we only wore it like twice. What you thinking, guys? John, what you thinking?
I still think it has to be that one with the people sponsor.
Right, I
It's
think
just minging,
So
man.
what was that 91-92 season, John?
91-92
91-92 away, aye.
Just because I'm writing all this down too.
got to be. That's
Aye.
horrendous strip, man. Horrendous.
It's good knowing
That's
yous.
us.
It's good knowing yous.
We've got our 11. We've got John Barnes as the gaffer, and we've got the two kits there. So I fair enjoyed that, guys. Thanks very much.
Good.
That's about us pretty much wrapped up. Did you enjoy that?
It was good gaff, mate. Good fun.
Aye, it's
Something
good.
different.
It's good looking at it. Like we say, the previous ones we sit and look in the past and talk about all the
The
best
greats
times
and
and the
that,
best
aye.
players we've seen. It's nice to just, especially in this season that we've had, that's been horrendous. I mean,
It's maybe more apt this season. We've
Maybe
been
some-
that crap.
maybe some of that 11 might get into this first team. To be fair, still can't believe Shane Duffy's not in there. Like,
I'd
a
take,
caravan
actually,
every time
in
he's
saying
running.
that, I'd take Gordon Marshall as a goalkeeper.
Aye, I would. I mean, as much as
This
I
year.
was my pick, I would take him.
Thanks, guys. That's about us done. Everybody that's listening, look out for the usual shows again every Tuesday and Friday night, and look out for a few. We've got a few more specials coming up. I think Stephen is going to come out with a few more shows from the Rewind series that looks into previous eras and a bit of nostalgia and a bit of the good times, maybe some of the bad times. So thanks again to John and Franny. Appreciate it, guys. Really enjoyed that. Stay safe, everybody. Take care. Hail, hail.